And wonderful. Hello and welcome. Today is the Monday, November 4th, Education Policy and Directions Committee meeting. My name is Trustee Mabobi and I will be your chair. The Greater Victoria School District wishes to recognize and acknowledge the Esquimalt and Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. First on our agenda is approval of the agenda. As a quick reminder, the voting members of this committee are myself, Trustee Duncan, and Trustee Bayo, who are present this evening. So can I get a mover to approve the agenda for this evening? Moved by Trustee Bayo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Next is approval of the minutes. The recommended motion is that the October 7th Ed Policy and Directions Committee meetings be approved. Can I get a mover to approve those minutes? Moved by Trustee Bayo. Any discussion? All those in favor? And those minutes are approved unanimously. Is there any business arising from the minutes? All right. Moving on, there are no presentations to the committee this evening, and so we're going into section C, new business. C1 is the mental health and wellness report. I'm going to pass it over to Associate Superintendent Powell.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chair. I have the Inclusive Learning Department, and specifically Nadine Naughton, District Principal of Mental Health and Inclusive Learning, has put a memo. It should be in the packet. I will take any questions or try to answer any questions or things that you may be interested in that memo.
And if there are no questions that I'm seeing at this time, I see Trustee Duncan's hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I did have a couple of questions just in relation to the goals and actions and steps section, which is, I believe, starts on page 6 of the packet. And we talk about in that under targeted funding initiatives, there's a reference to consider continuing funding for action research grants focused on student voice at the middle and secondary level. I wonder if you could clarify what that is referring to specifically.
I can't speak to, through the chair, I can't speak to that specifically, Trustee Duncan. I would have to take that question away and get back to you.
Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you to Acting Associate Superintendent Powell. Appreciate that. Look forward to that clarity. There was a few other questions I had on the memo, Chair. Should I just, in fact, I see that the VC PAC representative has potentially some questions, so I'm happy to cede the floor and take my turn later.
Yes, we'll come back around. Go ahead, Nissa.
Thank you. And through the chair, just a comment. In the past, as a parent, we received notification at times for permission for our students to participate in studies, or as parents to participate in studies that are run through post-secondary education institutions within the province where researchers are gathering data. So potentially that is the reference that's being made.
Associate Superintendent, do you have any follow-up, or can I go back to Trustee Duncan?
No, it's thank you, Nissa. That's what I thought it probably is, but I wanted to confirm that with Nadine first before confirming that, and I will get back to Trustee Duncan with the exact answer that she's looking for.
Thank you. Trustee Duncan, did you want to continue with your question?
Sounds good. Thank you, Chair. The other question I had was just in relation to public health youth wellness clinics, and I see there's a reference to continuing to work towards expanding clinics to all of our 8 secondary school sites. And I wondered just whether we could get a little bit more information about what the impediments might be to doing so, and if there is some advocacy that the board can be doing in order to push that work along.
Absolutely, through the chair. Just there is, we've already continued to expand. So further to that memo, it's actually, we've started a 4th clinic at Spectrum this year. So it's just begun. I would say that impediments in expanding quicker than that is working with Island Health on theirs and having enough staffing on that side of it. So many of the clinics are just a partial day or a day at each of those schools. So that is the main impediment. That and in some of our secondary schools, space is finding space as well, and flexible space we can use.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent. And another question, Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, if I may, Chair. Thank
Please.
you. So again, if we sort of continue down in the memo, the next section under professional learning opportunities, we reference implementation support for resources like Second Step, which I know a lot of our elementary schools in particular have used and continue to use. I wonder what kind of implementation support is being referenced and whether that requires like resources being layered in, or if it's just about kind of layering in our existing resources in a way that helps to support implementation. And then on that same bullet, wondered what kind of plans there is in relation to the nonviolent crisis intervention training, particularly what the focus of our resources and who do we see as our priority trainees this school year when it comes to receiving that.
Sure. I start with the Second Step. As you said, it's in most of our elementary, if not all of our elementary schools. Supports are at the district level, certainly with our counselors, district counselors that support that implementation to support schools that have already had it working. And so really it's a district and school-based working in concert. As far as nonviolent crisis intervention, and certainly Jessie Moore happens to be with us here today, and could certainly, if she wants to, she can jump in. We've had a number of our schools that have had that training with Jessie or other trainers in our district, and it's that growth and certainly the nonviolent crisis intervention training works just so well when you have an entire team. And by that, I mean a school community that's working together, using the same language, having the same strategies working forward to support children in our building. Jessie, I don't know if you want to add to that in terms of how many schools are coming on board as an entire school, and even perhaps the days Pro Deal is going to be offered.
Yeah, thank you. So we have started targeting our priority elementary schools. So we've trained over the past 2 years, 5 of the 10 priority elementary schools, the schools that came forward through staff committee wanting that training. We've also trained one of our middle schools as whole school training. We've brought a new instructor on board on our team, one of our EA mentors, which is fabulous. So we have an EA mentor as part of our instructor team. We have 10 instructors. And we do annual DEA certifications. So every year our DEAs have received training in November. We offer general training in October and February, and then our September and January days, and some of our schools for November, if the staff committee has chosen to have one of the training on a school-based Pro D day, we have that. So we went from 186 employees trained last year to over 400 this year. So we hope to continue that training.
Wonderful. Go ahead, Trustee Duncan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much to Jessie Moore for your insights and providing some additional context. That's a big leap forward, and we're excited to hear that we do that again this year. I heard nothing but good things about the importance of the training, and I'm really happy to hear that we've focused on some of our priority schools. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I look forward to hearing more about that. But I will park my question because again, I think one of our partners has a question.
Go ahead, Nissa.
Thank you. And through the chair, just a point of clarification, as I was on meetings last year where there were presentations from schools around basically showing the success they've had in after receiving training. I'm just clarifying, this is related, like those presentations are related to this initiative. I'm speaking particularly, there was an elementary school where the staff had a full day training, and then they were working as a school community around, I don't remember the specifics or the school, unfortunately, not enough Halloween candy. But I'm just wondering if I'm making the correct connection there. Oh, Jesse, you're muted.
Sorry, I can answer. That was Macaulay Elementary, and yes,
Right,
they had the training last year, and they worked really hard as a school community to implement that. So yes, you're right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Duncan, do you want to continue?
Sure, thanks, Chair. So the other question really was related to the nonviolent crisis intervention training, and just in terms of resources available. So it sounds like we've increased our capacity to provide the training in-house by increasing the number of folks that are trained to provide the training. Is there anything else like at a board level or with resource allocation that staff feel is necessary in order to support that training to continue and to increase the number of staff that go through it? Or do we feel like we've got enough resources to move it forward, and it's just about the interest at this point?
Yeah, go ahead, Associate Superintendent.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would like to take that question back, as much as I'm appreciative that Jesse Moore just happens to be here today and happens to be one of our amazing trainers. I'd like to take that back to the larger group that like you say, we've increased our capacity. I'd like to have the entire voice come back before I have suggestions for the board. So thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Go ahead, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, and just one more that I wouldn't mind servicing this evening, if I may, Chair, and thank you to the Acting Associate Superintendent for taking that back to get some feedback. The other bullet, again, I believe, let me just double check the pack-up. It's on page 7 of the pack-up, and this is just around collaboration in health education. And so the bullet says, continue to fund collaborative efforts among high school PHE teachers to enhance their understanding of comprehensive health education. And again, I just wondered if we could get a little bit more context and information about what that involves. I trust that it's very likely linked to some of the feedback that we got from students around their thoughts around what their needs are around sexual health and substance use education. And yeah, if there's any context or information that can be provided about what that might look like, that would be appreciated.
Yes, through the chair. Specifically, what I spoke to District Principal Naughton, our conversation was really focused on the consent education for secondary students. So the online self-paced module, that's a cost to the district, but ultimately empowers students to recognize how important consent is in relationships. So that specifically is what we were speaking around in PHE for our students.
Thank you, Chair.
Wonderful. One last call for any questions or comments about the mental health and wellness memo. All right, hearing none, I'm going to move us along our agenda to C2, the anaphylaxis quality review. I'll pass it over to Superintendent Whitten.
Thank you very much, Chair. On page 10 of the pack-up, you'll see a memo from District Principal Sean McCartney. Just wanted to outline as part of our commitment to quality anaphylaxis management, we conducted a district-wide quality review of implementation. This was done in late spring of 2024. And the review relates to the anaphylaxis protection order, as well as the BC anaphylactic and child safety framework and our district's anaphylaxis policy and regulation 5141.21. The attached report, which are on pages 11 through 16 of the package, provides a summary for the results of the review, and it also includes a table with actionable items with a timeline for completion. So the report is presented for information. We, as you see in the report, conducted this review last in 2021 prior to the 2024, and we will complete another one in another 3 years. So again, presented for information. Information will also go to school principals and vice principals who will be sharing with their staff.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any discussion or questions around the anaphylaxis memo? Go ahead, Nissa.
Thank you. And through the chair, in reading this memo, it appeared to me that the focus was on food allergies, but I'm just wondering how the schools are prepared for if a student has an unknown allergy to like an insect sting or something like that they would encounter on the playground, because there was mention of the schools having EpiPens that weren't associated with an individual prescription on site. And I was wondering if that was considered, or is that out of scope? Just a question, given that we want to encourage our students to be playing outside, but with warmer weather, potentially they would be encountering more insects on the playground.
Through the chair, if I may. Yes, so this is all allergies. This is all anaphylaxis incidents. And so as we know, many have an anaphylactic reaction to bee stings as an example. And so this does encompass both food allergies and insect anaphylactic reactions. With our policy and regulation, we are not meant to administer an EpiPen to an individual who doesn't have a known allergic reaction, life-threatening. However, we do phone 911 and they would guide us through that process.
Thank you for your question, and thank you, Superintendent. Go ahead, Trustee Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask a question about whether or not the review also took into account our protocols when students are off-site, for instance, on a field trip. And if you could provide a little bit of context about how that was reviewed or whether it was reviewed.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I would need to take that away. I know that our expectations are that not only a student with an anaphylactic allergy would take their own auto injector or EpiPen, we would also expect that one travels as an extra. And so I'm not sure if it was reviewed per se through this analysis, but I know our expectations are that. So probably through the review, we would be understanding the consistency of students carrying EpiPens, which should be throughout the building, on school grounds and on field trips. But I would need to check with district principal on exactly what was asked to ascertain the outcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any final discussion or questions around the anaphylaxis quality review? All right. Any notice of motion this evening? And we don't have any general announcements, and that brings us to adjournment. That's probably a new record. Can I get a mover for adjournment? Moved by Trustee Bayo. All those in favor? And we are adjourned. Have a great evening, everybody.